So we're going to need a pin punch, a blind bearing tool, and force. So what I have here is I have an old, I believe this is either a frog leg or an aluminum wheel. So I need to protect the hub from getting destroyed. So what you do is you take you screw down your blind bearing puller, right? So that screw meets there, or if you're using the version that has the, if you added the wing nut to it, you'd use the wing nut. And then you take 2 wrenches. First wrench, you slip this in to the bearing. You then tighten with the first wrench, and then using the second wrench, you just tighten this down. And you want it to be very tight. So that's why I use 2 wrenches. If you use the wing nut, you can also use the wrench on the wing nut. But you want to get that tight. So see how, that's really tight in there. So that's in there tight. Then you can use, if you're in your workshop, you can open up your vice jaws a little bit or on the side of your workbench and just put it on the side of the workbench and then use your pin punch and knock it out. Boop. For this demonstration, I do this a lot to show people, so I have this block. And I put my pin punch in there, and then using a couple taps, we'll just knock out that bearing. One, there we go. So using one tap, it was a parallel, I knocked that bearing out in parallel to the hub. And so you can see in here there's a shim in there between the bearings. And then this is a really high quality bearing that can be serviced. But then you take this off, and then you can either remove the bearing and replace it, or you can service it, take it apart, and re-grease it and stick it back in. So you just, in order to do this in reverse, just take this off. There we go. All right, so now I've got my new bearing and I want to put it in there. So I grease everything up. I won't do that here, but you grease everything up, and that's just to make sure that the aluminum doesn't react to the steel and or stainless steel over the ball bearing. It's not to create better rolling resistance. So you put your shim back in there, then you put your bearing in there, and you want to make sure that this is level, and that's so important. Some people just use a hammer, and the problem with the hammer is you can knock that bearing in unlevel. So in our kits, we sell a bearing punch, and so that's just so that when you hit it, it distributes that load all the way across. So the thing you want to do is you want to just make sure, kind of eyeball it from the side, and this is off level, so I'm going to tap it a little bit to get it level, and then I'm just going to knock it a couple times to knock it into place. And I just want to knock it flat. And that's it. That's how you remove and replace a bearing. Thank you.